Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Lacrosse Talk podcast. Firstly, thank you to everyone who has listened and subscribed to episode 1, and thanks to everybody who left feedbacks and comments for future episodes. We really appreciate your engagement with this new venture and hopefully it can be a success going forward. So episode 2 coming up looks ahead firstly to the School Challenge Cup taking place in Aldershot this weekend on Saturday the 23rd of November. The Challenge Cup features the top 8 girls' schools from across the country in a knockout style competition across 40-minute matches, crowning a final Challenge Cup winner at the end of the day. And part 2 of this episode highlights Stonewall's upcoming Rainbow Laces campaign. The School Challenge Cup teams taking part this Saturday will be supporting the Rainbow Laces campaign, and we chat about the aims and the message behind Stonewall's Come Out Active campaign in support of LGBT equality in sport. And we're joined now by Asha Riley from Berkhamsted School. Hi Asha, how are you?
Hi there, yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, all good here. So the School Challenge Cup coming up on Saturday, how are you looking forward to it?
We're really looking forward to it here. I think being a new tournament last year, we didn't really know what to expect, and we had an amazing day. The fact that it was actually the first opportunity in England for the school level to play a tennis-side tournament, and it's full 40-minute games, so it is relentless as well, and it really gave us a chance to get hold of the new rules and really try them out with the help of the 3 umpires, 3 officials that would be on each of the pitches. Was really, really helpful as a coach to see how the tennis-side game would unfold at school level and whether the girls would be able to cope. And because of the length of the games and the nature of the tournament with the top teams, it was clear that it was going to be a really positive introduction of tennis-side rules, and it created an amazing day of lacrosse that we were thrilled to be a part of.
And the girls did perform and did come out winners in the end, so that was a real nice moment for the team. And as you say, it was a bit new for everybody, but would you say it helped the girls find their feet and helped the girls perform and get into that new version of the game?
Yeah, I think it was brilliant in so many ways. Obviously, it's great to come out having won the tournament, but even so, I would have found it a really helpful tournament at that stage in the season. Obviously, we build and we don't play nationals until March, which is a really long time to wait until you play on the big stage. And I think the Challenge Cup is a really good introduction of a tournament that actually allows us to apply some real pressure to the girls and see how they fare against the other top schools, and then you've just got time to work on it, and with enough time to be ready for nationals come the end of the season. So I think the timing of this tournament and the nature of it as well has been really, really helpful.
Yeah, it's a bit of that jeopardy, the format's more a bit of a knockout. It doesn't allow for a couple of games to get used to things. It throws you right into it, and like you say, really gets them used to that high level play straight away.
Yeah, definitely, and I mean absolutely brutal because they are long games. They're not like tournament games. So as a positive side, you've really got time to feel your way into the games, although everybody's out to win it. So it's high pressure from the start. But yeah, as it's a knockout as well, every single game matters, and the message throughout the day has to be, we need to do things consistently well, because otherwise teams are going to unpick us because of the length of the games and because of the nature of the knockout. You can't afford to be complacent for 1 second, especially because you're up against the top 8 teams in the country. So I think it creates a really good training environment and puts the girls under a lot of pressure, which is always good.
How have you found trying to get to grips with the new rules, tennis side, new rules around the draw, those sort of things? Has it been an easy process, a difficult process for players and I suppose as coaches as well?
I think having been a player of the 12-a-side game and not having done a large amount of the tennis-side game, the last 2 years has been a massive learning curve for me in terms of how I would coach it, because I never actually played with the tennis-side rules at a high level. So that has been a real challenge for me personally, but actually introducing it to the girls hasn't been, because they are keen to learn and they want to be playing the game that lacrosse is across the world right now, and that involves the tennis side game. So they, the introduction, the way that we introduced it at school, we were really careful about, making it a really positive thing, really highlighting how this changes the game and how it benefits the game. And therefore, when we made those changes and we rolled it out across every year group straight away, the girls, they understood and they got on board with it and have been really positive about it as well. So, I mean, there's a few things that still are, you sort of nodding your head when the girls aren't self-starting and you've blown the whistle, but, they do pick up on it very quickly. I think the draw has been much better, much cleaner, and actually safer as well, because you haven't got 8-9 sticks going in for a ground ball.
Absolutely.
And I just think it cleans up the game a little bit there. So I think there's been some real positives in the game. I know there's some concern from a number of schools about how, if you've got 10 on the field but you still want a squad of 18, how do you manage that? And how people would be feeling that they're not getting as much game time. And I think, again, that, you need to do a bit of work on how you educate people about the game. Obviously, it's faster. It requires you to be fitter and to give more on the pitch for a shorter period of time. Yeah,
I think that's exactly right. That sort of, this is essentially, like you say, it sort of moves a bit faster, and it's like, right, well, instead of you playing, 80% of this game, you're only going to play 60%, but you need to give that same amount of energy in that sort of shorter time frame.
Yeah, and that is a real challenge for girls, especially those girls that have had, they've had all that time on the pitch beforehand, to then be told, oh, actually, you're going to be on quite a large subbing rotation. And I think that's where we need to be really clear as coaches as to why we are on those larger subbing rotations and, how you can benefit the team when you're on the field. I mean, throughout the season, we play an even subbing rotation anyway. So all of the girls in my squad of 18 will play on fairly even rotations. And, I think it just allows them to really focus on what they're going to do when they're on that pitch for that short amount of time and how they're going to make a difference. And we've had to do quite a lot of work on what do you do when you're off the pitch, where you're learning about what's going on the pitch, so that next time you're on, you're taking new information on, or you're taking a change in the game on. And I think selling it like that, if you're not on physically, you are off mentally preparing for the next time you're on physically. And that way, you're never out the game. You're always in it and you're always contributing. And I think that's really important to highlight as a coach, changing to these 10-a-side rules but maintaining squads of 18.
I think that's great. I think, like you say, it's not about you're off, switch off. It's you're off, watch the player that you'll be up against playing, take some time out to have a look at where you can make a difference and affect it when you get your time on the pitch. And I think that's a really good message to sort of pass through onto the girls. After winning the Challenge Cup last year, you then eventually, as you say, got to that back end of the season. You had a lot of time to wait and prepare and get ready for it, but then managed to pull off the same at the Nationals in March with the first win in the main tournament.
Yeah, that was a real highlight. I think in terms of national schools, it is the biggest tournament out there, and no stage during the season was I thinking that we would come away with both. Not that I didn't think I had the players, but you certainly can't be complacent in thinking, oh, well, we'll definitely, we won that, so we'll definitely take nationals. There are so many great lacrosse playing schools out there, and, we win and we lose our friendlies, so there was no guarantee that we were going to turn up on, it's a really physical 2 days for the girls. In the first and seconds, they've got 2 days of really hard competition.
So thinking back to that March, that was a brutal couple of days with the weather, wind conditions, and I'm sure the sort of the tiredness and the legs towards the end. I'm sure they were probably feeling it.
Absolutely, it was so clear, and everybody wants it so bad. I mean, that weekend there was awful weather. We were battling with tents, and they were flying across the pitches. So that is really difficult. And I think when there's an external element there that you can't control, you have to change the way that you approach that situation. So I'd seen that the weather was going to be awful and made sure on that Sunday that I turned up and, reinforced how well we can play in those conditions. And, just getting that level of belief, even though the conditions are terrible, that, they work in our favour really did help us throughout the weekend. And, it was certainly not any stage of that competition. It wasn't ever sort of in our pocket. We really ground it out, and we nearly got knocked out by Caterham in the semis, and they gave us a really great game. So I think in the end, it just came down to we'd rotated our squad evenly throughout the first day of the competition, and so we had probably slightly less tired legs than some of the other teams. And I think just that sheer level of belief within the players and also our supporters as well, that we could do it. And I think that really, that was really why it was our tournament last year, I think.
Moving into that little stadium for the last four, that sort of, especially in that final, there was quite an atmosphere, and the supporters were, really shouting and giving it from the sidelines. And I think
and that's what it's all about.
Gave a real nice atmosphere.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, I look at it as an ex-player, and I think how great for these girls to experience that level of support at this age, like even for some of my international games when I was a player, we wouldn't have crowds as big as that, or, cheering as loudly as that. So I think it's a great experience for the girls, and it also brings out, some incredible lacrosse. That final with Guildford was brilliant play, and the semi with Caterham, it was awesome. And the fact that we got to move on to those pitches in the stadium that were, slightly fresher and had the real air of, this is a final, or this is the sort of business end of the competition. I think that's really special, as a coach, to watch your team going out and playing in such a professional environment, but also for the players themselves, they might not get that again, and they've had that experience at school level. So I think that's really awesome.
As I say, I think it was a really lovely environment to finish it off in. Obviously, for some of the girls who, it would have been their last year in the team, that was their big moment. How are you shaping up this year? Have you had many players finish their time with you and move through, and have you got a few new players coming through this year?
I don't know if that's secret information. I'm only joking. We didn't actually lose that many players last year. I am utterly blessed with the commitment of the girls that I've got, and the talent that we've got that has been bred from years and years of coaching at the school. So I think we sit in a good position, and we're still working really hard. We wouldn't sort of step off for a moment. So I think, we've got the makings of, putting on a really good show. And I think it's going to be about whether we manage to maintain our, all the other things that go into a great performance. So, all the training and consistency and getting our mindset right, making sure we're cohesive, and that we're not really, distracted by the end goal, that we're actually focusing on the process. That's a huge thing for me, and something that I try to instill in the girls, so that they don't get, distracted or carried away with, the what ifs. Let's deal with what we can deal with now. So we've had some good fixtures so far this season, and we've got plenty more to come. So it will be difficult to say what we'll look like in March, but I'm certainly looking at the Challenge Cup next weekend as a really good opportunity to have a look at how we fare against some of the other top competition there, and also use it as a platform to develop ourselves and take something away from that weekend. Whether we win or lose, we will learn, and we will develop, and we will grow. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope it's a good tournament.
We've worked to team up with Stonewall for the tournament, so we're, as part of their Rainbow Laces Day campaign, we're getting the girls involved, bringing down some laces for them to wear. And I think it's really nice to see all the schools getting involved in stuff like that, those sort of campaigns that can, sort of move wider through the lacrosse community.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, coming from a school community, we do things like this in school, and I think it's important to always raise awareness of various other things outside of sport, and using sport as a platform. When we do have those team environments, people do work together a lot. It's really good to tie in other concepts and use it as a platform to share other amazing things that are going on, and things that players should support and be aware of. So we're looking forward to getting our rainbow laces and getting on the field.
hoping for some good weather. Hopefully it's a nice day and we can see some really good lacrosse, because like you say, that really is the sort of top level of sort of that girls lacrosse area. You know, you get some really high level competition in that area, and it's a real nice thing to watch. It's not, you know, it's not an average level, it's a really high standard that I think is a real good thing for anybody to come and see and watch and be a part of and be involved in.
Yeah, definitely, and I mean it's certainly something that, you know, younger players, if they don't have fixtures themselves, should certainly be getting down to watch, because, you know, I'm blown away sometimes when I see the level that we're playing in schools at the moment now. I mean, we had a fixture recently with Guildford, and it was such a phenomenal game, and put it in a different setting and you would have thought they were university teams or higher. It was really, you know, it was really that good a standard, and I think by us having more opportunities to put the girls in these professional environments and put them under decent pressure, we are only raising the bar for England lacrosse and for all the lacrosse in the UK. So I think it's a great initiative and something that we hope to be a part of every year, but we'll just keep working towards that.
Amazing. Thanks, Asha, for coming to talk to us.
Not a problem.
Good luck down in Aldershot next weekend.
Thank you. We'll see you there.
And to continue on from chat about the School Challenge Cup and the Rainbow Laces campaign by Stonewall, I'm pleased to say we're now here with Erin Walters-Williams, who works at Stonewall and is also an international lacrosse player, represented Wales over a number of years. Hi, Erin.
Hello, how are you? Thank you very much for having me.
No problem. Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. Excited to be here.
Cool. So as I say, we're just talking about School Challenge Cup, and that all the teams will be wearing rainbow laces on the day to support Stonewall's upcoming campaign. Do you want to just tell us what the sort of outline of the campaign is this year and what you're looking to achieve?
This is the 7th year of Rainbow Laces, and this year we're really focusing on the idea that everyone can play your part. It's not just about allies or people who do not identify as LGBT stepping up to help their peers. It's not about LGBT people having to take it all on their shoulders. It's sort of everyone can do something, whether or not it's as simple as wearing rainbow laces or as big as changing policies or, you know, putting in gender neutral facilities. Everything and everyone can do something.
Would you say, you know, that traditionally sport's probably an area where probably traditionally in the past, or maybe even now, you know, it's not been seen as a traditionally welcoming area for sort of LGBT people sort of to get involved in straight off?
Yeah, I think it really depends actually on the sport and on the level of play, really. So we find that 4 in 10 LGBT people still don't think that sport is a welcoming place for us, and that's almost half. That's a big number. However, what's really important to keep in mind is that LGBT people have been involved in sport for years and really do love sport. So whereas there is a perception of, you know, potentially things like going out and watching a football match on the terraces and hearing some of the chants, that absolutely needs to change around some of the homophobic, biphobic, and transphobic language that's used there. But sport has been and will continue to be a safe space for LGBT people. But what's really important is that it recognizes that it has that role and it serves that purpose deliberately. What we find is, and some of our research has shown, that sport, especially in schools and PE classes, is when a lot of people get turned away from LGBT people get turned away from sport because of the bullying. Mm-hmm. And there's one of our students said in a piece of research that, you know, if you're bad at math, nobody bullies you or questions your sexual orientation if you're bad at math. But if you're a boy and you can't kick a football, all of a sudden you're getting slurs thrown at you. And that goes a long way in turning people away from it. What I've always loved about lacrosse is there is that sense of it's sort of separated from some of the maybe more traditional areas where you might find some of the negative circumstances. So I'm not saying that it's perfect in lacrosse, but it is increasingly a very welcoming space for particularly lesbian, gay, and bi people. Trans people, it's been sport. Lacrosse has been really inclusive of trans people, but we can go a little bit further with that, and we want to just make sure that people are really explicitly including trans people to make sure that they know that it is a sport for them too.
It's been a really hot topic in the sort of, the wider sports media about the inclusion of trans people. And like you say, that whilst, certain athletes or commentators sort of are trying to think of their position and trying to think of their inclusion, it's sort of whether they've thought that they were doing it or not, they've inherently made that space less welcoming for people to try and get involved in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And trans people or cis people who are LGBT have been participating in sport, in an elite sport for years and years and years. And all of a sudden now it's a topic. I think the thing is trans people have been able to compete in the Olympics for forever, but in the guidelines for about 20 years. And no trans woman has won a gold medal. But all of a sudden it's a hot topic and people are just sort of chucking around. It's sort of become an excuse for people to sort of say some really toxic things. But, we have trans people playing lacrosse. We have, we have non-binary people playing lacrosse. And it's what I love about lacrosse is that it does provide for that area because it is so, I suppose what we would call the men's and the women's categories, or the sort of full contact and part contact sports, they're so different. So if somebody had grown up playing one and then was switching over to the other, it is different. So it allows for the space to basically grow, and the space to grow without having to have a medical transition and actually have that really nicely level playing field for everyone.
And what would you say that sort of, individual teams or just people themselves can do to sort of make those spaces feel welcoming? Because, whilst teams may, they may not have someone who is LGBT, or they may not think that they do, what can they do on a day-to-day basis just to make sure that that space is welcoming if somebody, thought they wanted to come into it or wanted to, make themselves, known to their team?
So I was really fortunate that I had teammates. The first people I came out to were teammates when I was playing in the States, and then I sort of had some personal issues and had to sort of almost come out, and I came out to my Welsh teammates and then my university teammates as well. And I actually think what they did was great, and I'll use these examples. First of all, it's not throwing around anti-LGBT language, so saying things like that's so gay. Even if you don't think a gay person can hear it, that person might not be out. There's definitely been spaces when I've thought about saying something, about mentioning my wife, and somebody said, "Oh, that's so gay," and it's like, okay, I'm not going to say that right now. So especially when you're younger and you're trying to, or actually of any age, but especially if you're new to a club and you want to introduce yourself and introduce a partner, if you're hearing this language and you're in a position of vulnerability already, you're not necessarily going to be, you actually are going to be really attuned to those little tiny things, and you're going to really notice it. So just a throwaway comment can have absolutely devastating effects. The other thing is, we talk at Stonewall a lot about the big little things. So it's tiny little actions that we can take that will make a huge difference. So one of the things that I found really great when I first came out was teammates just asking me, hey, how's the dating life? Or, really casually, the same way they would ask anyone else. Yeah. Or, when my wife and I first got together, it was oh my God, congratulations, this is wonderful. Just normalizing it and not treating it as something that they didn't want to talk about because of a perception that that they didn't feel comfortable. But I think that's really important, is if somebody ever comes out to you and this is as somebody who is LGBT or not, just check in with them and ask them and say, hey, do you want me to tell people? I remember when I came out to a teammate, she said to me, hey, don't worry, thank you for sharing, but I won't tell anybody. And I said, oh no, please tell everybody. I'm so tired of having this conversation. Yeah. But actually, that's not going to be the same for everyone. So just check in and say, hey, are you out in this environment? Do you want me to tell people? Do you not want to tell people? How can I help you? And the same way you would with any sort of lacrosse related skill, it's check in with that teammate and see what they need to help them be better, have a nice time. Yeah. Because it will be different for everyone. And we wouldn't want to sort of out anybody against their will. But just focus on those little things, and that they really do go a long way.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's all about asking questions. I mean, but doing it in a careful and considerate way, because some people might feel a bit uncomfortable having those conversations, like, oh, I don't want to say anything that might come across wrong or have some sort of offence taken to it. But as long as you learn and take on board what the other person's saying to you, it's kind of okay to ask those questions. It's okay to try and have those discussions as long as the other person, feels sort of comfortable with what you're asking them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important to open that dialogue with each person. I'm very happy to have conversations with people and to help educate. Others aren't. And Google is your friend. If if somebody says, oh, I'm not really comfortable talking about that right now, go home and look it up, do a bit of reading on it. There's a good ally will, do their own research, but also engage you around your own personal levels of interest. It's also really important to keep in mind that LGBT is the umbrella acronym. LGBTQ+, there's a lot of identities in there. And even if people have the same identity in this regard, experiences are different. So, no two lesbian experiences are the same, no two bi experiences are the same. So it's about talking to that person and not really making assumptions around saying, oh, I've got a gay friend and they like it this way, so my gay teammate must like it that way too. It's very different. So having, as you say, opening up that dialogue in a kind way, in a non-intrusive way, and taking the person's lead on what they'd like, but basically as you would, treating everybody like an individual.
But But I think it's really important, if we look at sort of the LGBT community, and sport can be a massive positive for your life. Quite often the sort of negatives get highlighted, or sort of negative experiences. But for things like mental health, or like this, having a group where you can come out and, have really good conversations with people, sport can be an amazing place for you to be able to have that sort of group and community.
As I said before, I've been really fortunate. The vast majority of my teammates have, over the years, have been straight allies, and I there were times when I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to be the only one, but they've never made it seem like that. And I think, increasingly the importance of having visible out queer role models is really important. But if you're on a team and there's only one LGBT person, then that's just how it is. So it's that also really importance of having visible straight allies who are standing up sort of loud and proud, sort of coming out in support of LGBT people. And having them role modeling that good behaviour is super important as well.
And that's, as I say, that's basically exactly what this sort of Rainbow Laces and the Come Out Active campaign is about. Is, whether you think it's just wearing a pair of laces or it's just doing this, that could have such a huge difference on making people feel accepted within that environment.
When I'm playing and when I'm coaching and I see the laces on someone, a complete stranger, it makes me feel great. It always has. It's a little signal of, hey, they've got my back. And, what's lacrosse all about, what's sport all about, is having each other's back and kind of knowing that you're on the same page, working towards the same mission is really important. And yeah, the Rainbow Laces, it's a tiny little thing to do, but it really, really does go a long way.
So if someone wants to find out a bit more about the Rainbow Laces campaign or about the work of Stonewall, where can they go to get their laces, or where can they go to find out more information?
So our website has all this as a page, stonewall.org.uk/Rainbow Laces. On that page, you can find loads of information, including basically links to Order Your Laces, top tips for inclusion in sport. You can read some ideas about how to get involved and come out active, which I'll talk a little bit about in a second, and then read some personal experiences and some case studies of LGBT people and allies who have really sort of spoken about what the campaign means to them. Come Out Active is our fundraising campaign this year. It's brand new, and it's essentially a way where we found that, around Rainbow Laces, people have been running, tournaments and Rainbow Lace tournaments for years. I know there were some lacrosse ones last year to raise funds, but this is a sort of a streamlined way for people to say, right, well, we're going to run a Come Out Active session and all proceeds will go to Stonewall, or we'll run a tournament, or, every day for a week I'm going to run to work. It could be as casual, it can be as competitive as you want it to be, and it's just a fun way to sort of get communities together and then get a little bit of fundraising in gear so that we can put more and more resources into really tailoring and streamlining the education pieces behind Rainbow Laces.
I think it's going to be great. I think we're going to see loads and loads of members of the lacrosse community coming out to support this sort of thing. I think that's sort of something that we always do quite well as a community, is sort of, get behind campaigns and support people like this. So I think it's going to be really great this year, and I'm sure you're very excited to see sort of what people do, what people come up with this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And you make a really good point. I'm always really super proud when I speak to a lot of universities, and the sports club managers will always say, "Oh, look, our lacrosse team was the first one who signed up for this," or "Our lacrosse team was the one who kept asking us for the Rainbow Laces," or "I'm getting emails from lacrosse captain." And it makes me super proud to be part of the lacrosse community, but it's very clear that we are leading the way, actually, in many ways, around Rainbow Laces, and around making sure that our clubs and our environments and our teams are fully inclusive. And yeah, I love that.
Amazing. So remind me, what are the dates of the campaign for this year?
So the campaign dates are the 22nd of November through the 8th of December, with Rainbow Laces Week running from the 22nd of November through the 28th. And Rainbow Laces Day is Wednesday, the 27th. So if you have fixtures on that day, box fixtures, or your office wear, get those laces on and shout about it on social media.
Amazing, brilliant, yeah. Thanks very much, Erin. We hope to see everybody supporting the Rainbow Laces campaign over the next couple of weeks and raising awareness for the campaigns that Stonewall do. Thanks once again to Asha and Erin for featuring as this week's Lacrosse Talk guests. We look forward to the School Challenge Cup this weekend, which you can follow across all England lacrosse social media channels. And thank you also to you for listening. Please subscribe to the Lacrosse Talk series, tell your friends, share across social media, and let us know what you thought of episode 2.